Meeting of the City of Grandview Heights Board of Zoning Appeals. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, ready to the roll, maybe?
Absolutely. Donosky?
Present.
Calvin? Here. Gotsman?
Yes.
Chair Kinzinger?
Here.
Director Roshane?
Here.
Director Comfort? Here.
All right. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from last month? Are we comfortable voting on every minute? Okay. So if you want to.
Is there a motion?
I made a motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 13th.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor say aye. Those not in favor say nay.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Approved?
Now, we ask anybody who's here today, if you think there is even the remotest chance that you will be speaking, I would ask you to join me in the oath, tell the truth. If you could stand up. And raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I swear to tell the truth. The whole truth.
The whole truth.
Thank you. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
There is no changes.
We'll move right on to case number 1, BZA case 23-2021, 1039 West 2nd Avenue, applicant Tim Vargo, owner Rebecca and Timothy Vargo. Applicant is requesting a variance along the east property line to allow a fence at 6 feet in height or an additional 13.5 feet to the code allowed 10 feet from the rear of the main building. And part B, the applicant is requesting BZA approval to allow a fence to be erected in the rear or side yard adjacent to the street/alley of a corner lot. We have someone here who would speak on behalf of this case? Do we not have anybody for our first case? 1039 West 2nd Avenue. Okay. Never had that happen.
Shall I make a motion to
Table.
to change the order? That is the last case of the night.
I think that's a reasonable thing. I don't know if we have to vote on that. We need to vote on a change to the agenda.
No.
We're gonna hold that off and hopefully they show up.
Well, I don't know that they're coming. I'm the neighbor, and want to make sure that I can do or speak to make sure it gets approved. We've been working on this now for about 3 years, so it's time.
You're the neighbor on that, at that
To the
one?
west. I'm sorry, to the east.
To the east.
Yeah.
They're
They're on the
streets to the
corner.
west.
They're on the corner, yeah. And I support it 100%.
And you think there's a chance they're not gonna come?
I don't know what their duty or obligation is. I don't think that they're required to be here.
You know, I guess I don't know that for a fact either. Never had someone not show up.
Yeah, generally, we do require them to show up for the hearing.
When I had my BZA exception several years ago, attendance wasn't necessary. In fact, it was encouraged that you not attend, with the idea being that others, if you were there, wouldn't speak perhaps as freely as they might.
That was not in Grandview.
No, sir.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, often the property owners aren't here, but then there's often the architect or the builder who's here to answer questions, because that's part of it, is we,
Right.
often the board has questions to the applicant about the project, and I think we've got questions about this one that we would need answers to.
What are the questions, you mean in terms of inches or in terms of what?
Yes, often it's that kind of stuff. It's, sometimes we like to, if the board is uncomfortable approving it as submitted, there are often conversations we have where we can find something that we would be comfortable with, but that requires a conversation with the applicant to find that, say, middle ground.
All right, I'm not the applicant, but I know the applicant, they're friends of mine. I know that this process started, again, right around when COVID started. And my understanding is that we've dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's and dotted all the i's. I'm not aware of anything legally that's holding this up. We would like to try to get this done this year. But I'm certainly not gonna have a problem here. You guys have a problem with some structure, it's a fence. So I guess I'm not really understanding what the challenge is.
Yeah. Yeah, it is requested.
There- I mean, I have questions and concerns, but I don't know that it's appropriate to address them with someone who's not part of the application.
But what I was gonna say is they can do the last case.
Okay.
So I think we need them here or someone who's, like I said, architect or builder, someone representing them officially, who can make decisions
They are asking.
in what the project, the scope of the project.
So can you educate me then on what are the things that are remaining? I'm under the impression that they've submitted drawings are approved, they have an authorized contractor. My understanding is that everything is complete with the exception of the variance.
Yeah, I think they have, I don't know that they haven't met the material requirements of the application, but, you know, the whole point of this board is to make a decision on does their request meet the term for variance.
Chair Bender, as
Yes.
a point of where I was able to get a hold of the applicant, they're gonna make their way down here, so
Okay.
if we could change the order to
Great.
delay this, hearing this case, and once they arrive, we can,
Right. Okay.
if that would work for you.
Yeah, I think that's a good solution.
Okay,
Thank you.
yes.
So we're gonna move on to case 2. Let me ask in advance, do we have 1436 West 2nd? Somebody here? All right. So case 2, BZA case 24-2021, 1436 West 2nd Avenue. Applicant Susan Hammond, owner Susan G. and Dennis W. Hammond. Applicant is requesting BZA approval to allow a fence to be erected in the rear or side yard adjacent to the street/alley of a corner lot. Do we have, let me think, I guess staff reports? Well, no, applicant would be first. I apologize. If we could get somebody with the application, if you could come up and stand here in front of us and, I guess just tell us really quick what we're looking at, what the request is.
Well, this is the existing fence, and we want to replace it.
In the same location.
The only difference is going to be where there's this little cut here because there was a tree. It'll be square, but otherwise, yeah, exactly the same. We're only doing the We're not doing the other side of the house. So it's just this side that is circled.
And this picture that we have represents what the new fence would look like?
Yeah, that's what the builder sent me.
Okay.
It's a very, very basic 6-foot fence.
I think your existing fence, if I remember correctly, is kind of offset on both sides, right? So that like at an angle, you can see through it.
Yes, it's one of
But
them.
it's, yeah.
Yeah, so it made it, it's really heavy too because of that. This will just be a single boards.
Right.
Um,
Okay. Staff report?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think the material issues of the case are pretty straightforward. I will say that it wasn't evident from the application that the intent was to square off the corner necessarily. We may want to look at that quickly. I think we can do that while the application is pending, just to double check sight lines, but they're likely fine. They almost always are, even when you're right on the lot line, according to our code requirements. The only note that there may be would be that, the guidelines tend to continue to prefer a 5-foot fence, for locations other than kind of the backyards between houses. So if you have an exposed fence, there's a desire in part of the guidelines to provide something that's a little bit lower, or, perhaps could be slightly more decorative. So you could consider whether, making it 5 feet, it steps up a bit from the side street, so there is a good privacy, I think could be obtained with the 5-foot fence. But you could also do a semi-transparent top portion, or you could consider, because this is really a replacement, and typically replacement in kind is looked at a little differently than something new. So those are the considerations. All in all, on the part of the design guidelines, it would be great to see something maybe just a little bit lower or a little bit more. That could. And that's all I have.
All right. Let's see. Oh, I guess, any comments from the community at this point? Any neighbors, anybody else want to comment on this case? All right. We'll proceed to a number of comments and questions. How about Member Callahan?
Sure. So I just want to clarify then, is the new fence in the exact same location as the old fence, just with that corner squared out? Okay. I think, similar to what Director Colfer said, given the height of the fence above grade or road level, you're up a hill significantly, where the fence starts, and a 6'10" fence, I feel like is pretty tall. Would you be open to having either a 5-foot fence or a semi-opaque portion on the top? Like something that's maybe like a lattice work for the foot above 5 feet to get to 6 feet?
Well, we already have a 6-foot. I mean, we had that fence for 35 years. That fence was there when we bought our house. It's been 6 feet for 35 years, and it's the way it is. And if we're not doing the other side, so we'll end up with a wonky looking 6-foot fence on one side and 5-foot fence on the other. So we would prefer to replace.
I do see your point. I think just as a note, so it is on record, I think for other locations where it is a new fence, I think my preference would be to see a lower height or a semi-opaque version for the up to 6 feet. Does anybody else have any, I guess I could see replacing this fence with similar to existing since it is existing. Does anybody else have any?
I agree with your last comments. If we were the 5-foot fence now and asking to go to 6, totally different, but it's already a 6 foot, so I have no concern with replacing it with a 6 foot.
Just a comment from staff. The application that we did receive, we weren't aware that they weren't gonna do the same angle. That one didn't come across clear in the documents that you submitted. So I would suggest if you do approve the squared off part, we would do a conditional on a field check of site distance. I have no problem if you put it back in the same spot. That's what we assumed was gonna happen.
Right, and I think I saw in the application that was on the website that there were some verifications of those distances that must have been done by staff.
Yeah, Mark, we usually go out. I know he did this one based on the angle,
Right.
so.
Well, we can leave the angle there if it's easier. It was just built because there were trees at the time.
Right.
But it can certainly stay where it is. We're not, we're not committed to, I just thought for purposes of the bill and the
Sure.
cost and everything, that if they could just square it off, it'd be a simpler bill.
Yeah, I think our only concern is that, was it only done previously because of a tree, or was it done because of the tree and because of sightline requirements that are in the code? Right. We don't know
It
either.
existed when, yeah. we
So,
don't
but
really
there are
know.
sightline requirements that are in the code there. So I think what Director Boshane's saying is that we would approve it today. We get to an approval that would be contingent upon verification of those sightlines, then it could be done as a corner.
Okay. Yeah,
Otherwise,
like I said, it doesn't either way,
Given the choice, if it's a 6-foot fence, we'd probably rather have the angle there, because it'll be clear visible around that corner.
All right. Like I said, we're good either way.
We could reach that to you.
Oh, no.
No,
No.
I guess I'm gonna be grouchy, and I'm a little uneasy with the reasoning behind approving it being because it's there now. I mean, we have had 7-foot fences that existing 7-foot fences that we've said, it doesn't matter, I don't know how you have a 7-foot fence now, but you can't have a 7-foot fence. We've had that happen. So I'm not exactly clear on, or I guess comfortable with that being the only reasoning, not that there isn't a good reason. The fact that I measured it today, the base of the fence is 28 inches above the sidewalk. So essentially, a 6-foot fence is over 8 feet above the sidewalk, which is obviously a lot. I'm not really sure of the thought behind it. Because of that height difference, a 6-foot tall person on the sidewalk basically won't be able to see anybody unless they're standing right next to the fence. So it still provides all that privacy. And my feeling on the code and the design guidelines when it comes to this is a lot of it is just like the feel, the presence of that fence to the rest of the community who's outside the fence. So taking a 6-foot fence and now raising it 2 feet in the air makes that even a more even imposing fence. And I do think the fact that it's fully opaque, then it does make it feel different than what you've got there now. What you have now does allow some light to come through, it feels more open. This is gonna feel like an 8-foot tall wall. That's my concern. It was suggested possibly doing something with an opening at the top, which we've gotten into that in other places before, which is kind of like a 5-foot tall fence and then a foot worth of lattice work on the top. That has been done. That's actually a pretty common fence design around town. I guess I would be interested to hear your thoughts on what does a 6-foot tall fence provide to you, the homeowner, that a 5-foot tall fence would?
Well, like I said, the aesthetics of the fact that the fence on the other side of our house is a 6-foot. So
So the aesthetics from, like, looking in your backyard
from
inside
the
house.
front, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, and I appreciate what you're saying, that just because of what's there now, but it's been there for over 35 years. I guess you know, I don't know how to respond to that, except, you know, that.
If I may, just by way of clarification on why it becomes an issue, there are many components of the neighborhood in general, and certainly fences, that were never permitted in the first place when they were built a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's one issue. The other issue is that the community goes through different planning cycles over time, and one of the things that the community did, 15 years or so ago, is through a series of public meetings, went through the creation of architectural design guidelines. They're guidelines, they're not laws, but they kind of represent the character of the community that the community said that we wanted to encourage. So this body is just trying to sort of extend that community directive that none of them are probably even part of, that effort. I don't know, don't want to put words in your mouth, maybe you were. But anyway, that's kind of why the conversation comes up.
So I understand, you know, what you're saying, I just.
I think it's also fair to let you know, we've got one board member ended their term last month. So ordinarily there are 5, and this evening there are 4. You have options. You could ask for a vote, you could also ask for tabling, depending on
Yeah,
the preferences of the board.
said that. We usually try to point that out when we're not full force of 5. It takes 3 yeses to get an approval. So, and it's, even if there were only 3 of us, it takes 3 yeses. That's the way the city code is. It's not a majority who's here. So when we're not full force, we just want to make sure that you understand that, and you've always got the option to table it until we are all 5 of us here.
And you know, I'll be honest, we thought, I mean, our fence is old, again, 35 years, that we were going to improve the look of the area by putting, you know, an incredible amount of money into half of a fence, because, you know, it will look better, you know, the neighbors, it will certainly be better for all the neighbors. So, I guess I don't really quite know how to respond to this.
Maybe I can help.
being on a corner, I'm on a corner as well, you're automatically at a disadvantage because a person not on the corner can have a 6-foot fence in their entire backyard.
Yeah.
No questions asked, as long as it's within the setback issues, all that stuff.
Mhm.
When you're on a corner lot, our code and the design guidelines, but more for the code. The code has it in there that the fence not be more than, I believe, 30% opaque. So what the code is looking for are more open fences, you know, whether it's separated dog ears, iron, wrought iron type fences. That's where the code puts, every corner lot has to get an approval, not necessarily a variance. You're getting an approval and a variance because you want that 6-foot part versus a 5-foot, you would not need a variance. You would simply need the approval because you're on a corner lot.
Mhm.
That's the difficult position that you're in, being on the corner. So if you had a fence that had open dog ears, similar to your shadow box style now, because it has that pass-through feature, that pass-through feature would almost fit the bill to be able to pass that test, and that's in the code. That's not the design guidelines.
Well, the difficulty though is if you live on a corner and you have a dog, and you live in an area where it's nonstop traffic around your house of dog walkers and bikers and runners and strollers, and your dog can see through these slats, it's very difficult. And it's difficult on neighbors as well, if, you know, that's how it is. I mean, the purpose of having a fence that there is no visibility is to help control our dog. So that's what we were trying to do.
Certainly, and that could be accomplished at the 5-foot mark versus the 6. And I'm sympathetic to, it was an existing 6-foot fence, that's why I don't propose, I don't feel the code would want like a retroactive scenario in your case. But I was just trying to shed light on why it's different when you're on a corner, it's automatically different.
I understand
There's a
that.
complete different set of code.
But if a building permit is not, I guess I'm saying this more, it's internal board conversation. If a building permit is not held to the code that is enforced at the time, what's the point of our codes, right? I mean, I understand it's existing, we don't know if it was correctly permitted when it went in.
It did go through the zoning boards.
So-
Because the people we bought the home from told us about the process and everything that they had done to do so.
So, but I guess regardless of the process when it went in, is that when changes happen to the code, this is how they get actualized in the communities through building permits. And, I mean, our struggle is that it's not really about, our decisions are not based on what we like or what we don't like. There's state of Ohio has laid out legal reasons for basically allowing a variance. Like what, and it's about the practical difficulty. And we're allowed to consider other things beyond what like the state minimum requirements are, but we try to keep that in mind. What's the reasoning behind the granting of the variance? That's really what we're interpreting. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on the applicant. We're not doing it based on if we like it or not. And I guess that's where I definitely hear you on the fully opaque, and we have approved, I think, lots of those on corner lots for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. the 5 foot versus 6 foot is really, I guess, what I'm struggling with. I'm not sure that 6 foot doesn't provide you any additional privacy. It doesn't, help with the dog. I'm struggling with what the kind of practical difficulty is of complying with the code in that sense. I don't know.
Or the 5 foot with the 1 foot that you suggested, still get to the 6 foot, but have, if you're concerned about it in the backyard, the height being very.
Well, I think that with the way that it's laid out right now, your two portions of the fence are pretty separate. And you have an obstruction in the way, which is the garage, to break your line of sight. So I do completely agree with Rick that standing on the sidewalk, it's a pretty imposing fence at 6 feet.
I guess, would you be okay with us voting on it as submitted, but it's 5 foot? Or would you rather not, us not consider that?
Well, I guess I wish I knew before I started this process that you wanted 5 foot fences on corner lots. I mean, I think that would have been helpful before I worked through this. So, I don't know, I think, don't want to hold up the meeting. It sounds like, I mean, based on the comments, I kind of have a pretty good sense of where the vote's going to go. So, I guess what do you think? Just
Let's
leave it as is?
Let's do the 5 foot with the lattice. I mean, whatever gets it
I
done.
don't want that lattice. I've seen it on other
I mean,
fences.
people will be looking at us
But
as
it
we
just-
sit on our deck.
You
but
can just say
our-
decay.
Folks here will be happy.
You can do another design also, I know on the corner of, is it, Glen, Westwood and First, there's a new fence that's on a corner line that went up, and it's a 5 foot fence with, it's just like a vertical line break, and then a top bar at the top. But there are other options, like to actually see in Grandview, but there, I mean, you can do whatever you want that would have some more transparency.
But then I would have to come back here and present another design and.
No, we can approve it with, we can say 5 foot fully opaque up to 5 feet, and then allow an additional foot on top as long as that is, we'd have to pick a number, but like typically 30% fill. And there's other ways to do it. You can do it with a lattice, like she was saying, you can do it with just the occasional vertical board. There's visual ways to do that and to maintain not going past 30%.
Staff can look at it, but you don't have to come back. and-
Yes.
And just as a point of clarification, if it's a 5 foot fence, no variance will be required.
Well, but we'd have to approve the 1 foot on top.
I'm just thinking, if it's the end of opting out of doing anything above that.
Right. If it's just, if it's just 5 feet maximum, then there is no approval required.
Well, there's approval with no variance.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Then the code requires.
Yes, that is
So really, we should go on is the approving it with the additional, saying approving it with the 5 foot doesn't, they don't need an approval for that from us.
Well, they need our approval because it's a flat lot.
Yeah,
Even if
I think she's right.
They need there's no variance. But
Right.
They need an approval, a vote of approval
Sure.
for the design, or including whatever conditions you'd like to put on the design, because it's on a corner lot. There'll only be a variance if they would like to extend it up to 6 feet partially.
That would be great. Right. So I guess we could approve that 5 foot fully opaque with, at your option, an additional 1 foot on top that would be no more than 30% solid, no more than 30%. Okay? And like I said, there are various ways to do that. You would then bring it into the building department just for like a final approval of, yes, that meets what you were granted. You don't have to come back here. You or your builder could bring it in for that.
We address the corner.
Yeah, we certainly, that would be part of the motion. We would address that corner, verifying the sight line from the corner. We'd like to try to find something that's not gonna hold you up, something that is gonna pass, and something that you're okay with. So I guess that's the question. Is that?
Well, yeah, I guess that's, fine.
Okay, I feel like we're at the point of a motion, are we? Who would like to make a motion?
I'll do it. I make a motion to approve BZA case 24/2021. For a variance to section 1155.15D to allow a fence to be erected in the rear and side yard. The approval contingent on the design of the fence being 5 foot fully opaque, and then an additional foot, no more than an additional foot above that, to be no more than 30% opaque, and for approval of the corner condition change pending verification by staff.
I second that.
Demasmi,
Yes.
Townend,
Yes.
Gotchman,
Yes.
Chair Kenzinger,
Yes.
Clifford.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So now I believe it's 1039 West 2nd is here now? Okay, so we'll go back to that one. BZA case 23-2021, 1039 West 2nd Avenue, applicant Tim Vargo, owners Rebecca and Timothy Vargo. Applicant requesting a variance to section 1155.15F along east property line to allow a fence of 6 feet in height or an additional 13.5 feet to the code allowed 10 feet from the rear of the main building. And the applicant is requesting approval to allow a fence to be erected in the rear or side yard adjacent to the street/alley corner lot. Correct. Can you introduce yourself and tell us what we've got
Tim
here?
Vargo, 1039 West 2nd Avenue. Moved here, I guess.
Oh, hold on, I apologize.
Yeah.
Member Gossman mentioned, since you guys showed up late, I need to swear you in.
Okay.
If you could just raise your right hand and say, repeat after me, I swear to tell the truth,
Swear to tell the truth,
the whole truth.
the whole truth. Yeah. Tim Vargo, 1039 West 3rd Avenue. I lied the first, no, it's West 2nd Avenue. Grandview. We moved in about, I don't know, 6 years ago?
Yeah.
So we do need a new fence. As it stands right now, this fence is falling down. We have a special needs dog, big dog, totally deaf, basically knocking down hunks of the fence right now, and we just have to get something in. So that's where we stand right now. Any questions?
I guess first we'll go to staff report.
Sure. So this case is in many ways similar to the prior one.
Very similar. Yeah.
With the exception, in a sense, or actually it's some similarity, because the prior fence was partially see-through, but in a different way. It was partially see-through, top to bottom.
Exactly.
So it's similar in that sense. I think that the major question will be, generally in keeping with the guidelines, again, we would recommend continuing that kind of, relatively speaking, a similar sort of a design with the 5 feet with the 1 foot partially opaque component at the top, and then the other, the real question is about the fence on the inside lot line. It goes almost all the way to the front of the house now. There are large evergreens on the front of the house. You do not see this fence, but you could if those came down at some point, and then that would be far forward of what's permitted in the code now. A little bit unclear as to whether it needs to go that far forward or to pull back. So I think that would be the conversation the board may want to have with the applicant.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, we would recommend approval of that 5 foot fully opaque with partially transparent top piece. And again, similar approval, you could have a 6 foot fence max up to a certain point. And you guys have been through this particular question before, to a certain point on the inside lot line, transitioning to that 5 foot fence, but it is quite far forward, and we would need to understand if there's a real practical difficulty with not pulling it back, to really approve that. Otherwise, we are recommended to be pulled back somewhat.
What, can you tell me what the requirements are on that?
You can have a 6 foot fence.
No, on going toward the front of the house.
Yeah, right. So you can have a fence, bear with me, a 6 foot fence to 10 feet in front of the back plane of the house. And then you can have a 5 foot fence to the front of the house. You can't have a fence in front of the house, which you don't today, and you're not asking for that. But they could have that 5 foot fence all the way to the front.
I'm fine with that. That sounds good. Yeah.
Just for clarification.
Yeah.
I know my guys looked at this, and we took the dimension from the survey. The base of the house was the corner of the 12.4 foot dimension, not the heated room addition. We didn't consider that as the main, okay?
Right.
So, and we just put a placeholder in of 23.5 feet. What I'd like to ask the applicant is, on the plan, there's a blue line for the fence. What his intent was, how far from the front of the house back?
I was just looking to do basically what our footprint that we have now.
So you want to go right to the front of this, of the house?
The footprint that we have now. Yeah.
Okay.
Does the fence now comes up your east side and then terminates at the front corner of the house? Or is it?
It's behind the porch.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so if the board does do something, you may want to adjust the dimension. I think I used 23.5, but if 12.4, and that's 24.1 minus the 10, so we need 14.1 if you go all the way to where the porch is. I just used that.
I'm losing you, but I'm not good at math.
That's only for a 6 foot fence.
But that's for the 6 foot fence.
Right.
I mean, if you're saying you're good with
five's
complying
fine.
with the 5 foot, essentially it's, once you're 10 feet forward of the back of the house,
Okay,
you would come down.
go down to 5.
And then for the rest of the east and then of the part that's parallel to the street, that would be 5 foot.
Yeah, and here's the big question then. So if I say, okay, guys, because I'm gonna meet with the contractor then and just say, look, as soon as we get 10 feet beyond the back side of the house, I need you to drop it down to 5 and take it all the way up. The rest of it, you can do 6, but I want you to, on the side that's facing the street, make sure that we have that lattice work. As far as the side that's between the houses, just keep it at 6, it's fine. Am I understanding that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess we haven't started to talk about the fence on the street side yet.
I thought that's what she had brought
It's
up.
just my staff
A little
report.
bit, right.
They haven't, I'm just staff, they're the board.
You jumped ahead?
This is.
You jumped ahead on me.
I gave, so the normal order of presentation is that the applicant will present, staff will
Okay.
present, and then the board will deliberate, so they haven't done that yet.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes. My first meeting, so. First meeting jitters.
Okay, I guess first, any neighbors or community members want to comment on this case? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the board. So we want to go first, maybe Andy? Any questions?
We're just trying to rectify, it sounds like he's willing to comply with some of the requests already in terms of stepping it down to 5 foot and doing.
Yeah, on the
some-
east property line.
Yeah,
It-
so,
It sounds like part A is going to go away. We don't need to approve that as a variance because it wouldn't be a variance.
Right.
That's what we're talking about on the east property line, going down 5 feet.
There's a
It's not a variance, but because it's a side.
Well, that,
side yard.
I mean, the main issue there was that we were going too high to the front of the house, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That was-
Which
no,
yeah, I'm fine with 5. It doesn't matter.
So the A goes away.
right, the way it goes away. So now we're really just talking about, I guess, any other concerns with the fence?
so the drawing that was attached didn't show the lattice, correct?
Correct, it shows a 6-foot fully opaque.
So then we're suggesting it would be approving something similar to what the current fence's design is,
Yeah.
but different in style overall, but I would be okay if it was similar, identical to the current fence.
Yeah, I guess I would point out that the current fence is not 6 feet tall. It's 5'7" is what I got to the top of,
You're probably
to the
right.
top.
Yeah.
I was just looking at the section next to the stairs on the side. I mean, I didn't measure your fence all over the place. I just took measurement there. And again, it's 22 inches above the sidewalk to start with. So again, for the same reasons, I'm concerned about a 6-foot fence. But I think, and the current fence is 4 feet worth of fully opaque. And it's got 19 inches of the lattice, the header and then the lattice above it. So I think 5 feet is fully opaque, and then it's going to feel like a taller fence. Now, having said that, we regularly approve the 5-foot solid and then 30% above, the 1 foot at 30% above that. And I think I'm comfortable with that.
And I think the other thing to note is that it's stepped in significantly from the adjacent roads and houses.
It is, yes.
So it's not a sightline issue.
Right.
I think a 5-foot fully opaque with a up to 1 foot semi-opaque would be in keeping with other similar applications throughout Grandview.
Yep, I agree. And it sounds like that's something you're, is
It'd be fantastic.
doing now. It essentially is what you've got now, just
Right, it's
Cleaned
just
up,
on that side
cleaned up and
yard.
new looking. Yeah, good.
So, one question, is the whole fence in between you and the adjacent property coming down?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so then the little wing that's at that's towards Second will be replaced as well, all at 5 feet.
Explain what you're talking about?
The short piece that's parallel to Second, like this, off the front of your house.
Yes, sorry.
Can I see?
Yeah.
Approach, can I approach the bench?
Yeah, so in front of your house, this wing, and then your neighbor, like this. wing.
Yes,
So you're
yes.
just gonna replace them both?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah, which is also a good point, because if that was not 5 foot, then we need the neighbors to apply for a variance.
And he's here. He's staying very quiet though, because he doesn't want to get in trouble.
I'm good with all that.
You can speak last.
Good.
You good with that?
No additional comments.
Okay. Well, feels like we're probably ready for a motion. Andy, want to go for it?
I'll do my best. I motion to approve BZA case 23-2021 at 1039 West Second Avenue to applicant is requesting approval section 1155.15D for a fence to be allowed to be erected in the rear side yard adjacent to the street. With the condition of 5 feet opaque and a up to 12-inch,
Up to 30%.
up to 30% opaque on top of that.
Yeah.
And a note about the
And
5 foot on the other side.
Well,
Do you want to note that? Or we're just?
No,
gonna
I
it's
mean,
gonna be
it-
compliant?
yeah, that's compliant if he does it that way, and we don't need to adjust it.
Hey, can I look at the picture and just make sure that when I explain to him? So,
Yeah, so, right, what you would be doing is this,
Yeah, it's probably on there.
so this portion would be 5 feet. 5 feet plus 1 foot up to.
and I could kind of just say, use the current fence as kind of a knot.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and, I mean, you can,
Okay.
that's a good example, and then this would be, so from this point here, up 10 feet. So up to here can be 6 feet.
Gotcha. So 10 feet from the home, not the addition.
Correct.
Correct.
Gotcha, okay.
And then, so this is mentioned, cross it out. And then it can either step down slowly,
Right.
or it can come down to 5 feet, and then this portion right this 5 feet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely, that'll help. I'll probably see you tomorrow. Do I need to do anything with you guys after this?
Yeah,
Not with this board, but you will get a fence permit.
Yeah,
The
what?
Building and zoning department. We'll have to get a fence permit through the building and zoning department.
Oh, they do?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
and at that point, Charlie, you'll want to see it to verify that that extra foot is only 30% opaque. Like, you want to see it.
We'll want to see
Design.
the revised drawing for the fence. on-
From that.
On the street, yeah, on the
Yeah.
street side.
Okay,
And then we understand the other side that's adjacent to the property is going to meet code.
okay, appreciate it. Charlie,
Yes.
can I call you?
Sure.
All right.
Just call our office. yeah.
Okay.
They haven't voted yet.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You never know.
Yeah, walking away.
Okay.
And was there a second?
Second.
Calna?
Yes.
Gotzman?
Yes.
Janosky?
Yes.
Chair Ginsberg?
Yes.
Approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. on to case number 3, BZA case 25-2021, 1298 Morel Avenue. Applicant Brenda Parker, architect. Owner Christopher and Kristen Bognitz. Applicants requesting a variance from section 155.02C3 to increase the allowable lot coverage from 40% to 44% for a new two-story addition to the existing two-story dwelling. Applicants requesting a variance from section 1155.09A1 along the east property line on a corner lot to reduce the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 9 foot 8.5 inches for a new two-story addition. And the applicant's requesting BZA approval for section 1155.15D to allow a fence to be erected in the rear or side yard adjacent to the street/alley of a corner lot. Okay, do we have that? Okay.
We'll let her do the talking.
I'll do this second. Did she get sworn in? Or
I did not.
she wasn't? All right. That's where it's all true.
That's where it's all truth,
The whole truth.
the whole truth.
Thank you.
Okay. So this is a house on a corner lot. Behind the house is the Ohio Tap Room, diagonal is Burns Pub, so it's kind of right in there in kind of a commercial district. The house is a cute two-story. It has a single-story conglomeration of additions on the back. The project kind of takes down that addition but uses the foundation to install a new two-story addition with a covered patio on the first floor and a new detached garage. They currently do not have any off-street parking at all. So the garage would allow them to have a two-car parking, and then we're proposing that the driveway comes off of the side street so that they can kind of have two additional off-street parking spaces utilizing the driveway. So this lot, being a corner lot, is supposed to be 8,200 square feet in size. And it's only 52% of that. So it's a super small lot compared to the zoning requirement. So we're asking to increase the lot coverage to 44%. And if it were that 8,200 square feet, it would be like code zoning compliant, well below the zoning requirement of that lot coverage. The east side of that existing single-story addition is not 10 feet from the property line, but we want to use that foundation wall, so we're asking for that few inches of variance to the side yard setback. The fence is existing. All we're doing is kind of turning it from the side street to meet the garage. The rest of it will stay intact as is. And then, obviously, aesthetic review, if that's always on the list, so. That's it.
Can you say that again about the fence? I guess I'm a little confused about it.
There's an existing fence on the property that runs along, it kind of goes from the single-story addition, out to the side street, down along the side street, and then it goes all the way across the alley and back to the neighbors. So we're doing the new detached garage that will be outside of the fence line. So we're basically taking that fence along the alley and we're pulling it toward the house so that the driveway, there's no fence between the driveway and the alley.
So you're going to maintain the existing fence, like, let's say it's parallel to Morel and it's parallel to Hope,
Correct.
but just not quite as far as it is now.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. I think I guess I'm surprised that just with the construction activity that you think the fence will survive.
I mean, sometimes they kind of take the boards off for the area that's going to get damaged, but they leave all the posts and the foundation in place, and then they'll just re-nail up the boards when construction's
Sure.
complete. I know there's a lot of fence topics today.
Well, there are a lot of fences. Yeah, back forward.
All right. So obviously this is a fairly substantial project for the lot. I think the applicant has described it pretty accurately as far as our understanding and reading of the drawings as well. Would make note of a couple things a little bit different than the prior applications and other things. The site's very flat to the sidewalk. There's not really a slope up to the yard. The adjacency to the commercial properties is a difference here. I'm looking at the site and services overview, just to make note that they request for a new curb cut. There's a street tree relatively close. It looks like it's probably going to miss it, but I think that you want to verify that. Let's see. I moved down with regard to lot coverage, as the applicant noted at 4,306 square feet per lot versus 8,200 for a corner lot. The lot is much smaller, which definitely limits the amount of built space that the applicant can, by rights, build on this lot within the RSP district. Just as a note, if the lot were compliant, or were of a compliant size, the lot coverage would only be 21%. It really is over the size of the lot that's driving overage on the requested lot coverage. That being said, there is a balance still that the code is seeking to reach between the amount of built space and the amount of impermeable surface. And with regard to this project, those are still considerations, I think, predominantly because it's a choice to reorient the door into the garage, and without that, there may not actually be a lot coverage issue. And I realize that it doesn't count for lot coverage, but it nonetheless is impermeable surface. However, again, in this case, the immediate proximity of a gathering business does put pressure on this particular lot in a different way than other lots in the city may have pressure on them with regard to parking. So I would say, taken as a whole, it seems like a reasonable solution to the very specific nature of this lot. The home on the opposite end of this block has done the same thing, and there's actually really a number of them in this district that have the end lots with their drives turned sideways. There's many of the alleys rise, it's hard to get in, not all of them, this one does not do that, but there is that commercial aspect to the alley behind them, and so by turning it, they're getting a more of a residential exposure versus a commercial exposure for their garage door.
You said the other end of the block.
If you go west to the other end of the morale, on the same side.
The house that has the fire?
Yes,
Yeah.
that house.
Okay.
That house is treated the same. And in this case, one could see that there's really more pressure on this property because of the immediate proximity of the bar to the rear. So generally speaking, we would be supportive of the configuration and the square footage overage given the substantially smaller condition of the lot and the specific location relative to the commercial properties adjacent. That's the more difficult one, perhaps, to consider. The next variance with regard to primary structure side yard setback, 10 feet is required. The existing home is 3.5 inches shy of that, very nominal. There's an existing foundation to be reused. We would support that as well on the practical difficulty arising from the conditions of the existing structure being such as they are. And then with regard to the corner lot side rear yard fence, in this particular case, because the side yard fence is remaining, and you're really talking about a rear yard fence being built, we don't take any exception to what's being proposed and would support the applicant proposal.
And just for the board, additional information, any curb cut will be approved through the service department, the mayor's office. And then I think the architect put on there was an electric pole that if you had to put the door there, you couldn't have to move that pole on that side. And then aesthetic review, we did that in-house, and
We did do it in-house, and actually, I think some of the things we talked about, and that I see registered in some drawings, don't necessarily appear in every drawing, and it's so tiny, it's hard to see it, but the applicant did make some changes to the design to better register the original home.
and
We don't take any exception to the design.
with that said, we didn't ask for aesthetic approval.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Just one other note I did want to make. The property to the north has an asphalt parking lot, and then there's an alley, and then there's gonna be 3 feet, and then the garage. And so I just suggesting that perhaps, we don't want that to all kind of blend together. So the turning of the garage, if that could be accompanied by a physical edge for planting wall, I think that would, again, kind of a little bit ameliorate the increased impermeable surface that they're really getting with the driveway, and kind of encourage the remaining green space to be able to continue to exist and not be driven over and everything.
Yeah, I guess it's not clear what is going on in that north 3 feet on that side of the, is that intended to be grass?
Probably some sort of ground cover that, you know, is, you don't have to mow it and maintain it.
But not paving, I guess.
Not paving, no, just to create that buffer so people don't think that it's part of that alley or part of the tap room parking area.
Okay, I don't, if we have any members of the community here to comment on this case, guessing we don't. So we'll move on to board questions, conversation. I guess I have one on this time. I think I saw, it seems like one of the thoughts behind, one of the many reasons to turn the garage to face Hope is creating some additional parking there. And I guess I wonder, is 15 feet between the garage and the sidewalk really?
That's a setback requirement from the zoning code, is it has to be set back 5 feet further than the house.
There will be no parking.
But that's what I'm wondering, I don't think there's a parking space there.
The 15
No, it's
feet-
just a driveway.
You can't block,
Right,
a sidewalk with a car to get
Right.
to that, so.
right.
And you can't park a car, if you got 2 cars in the garage, you can't park a car behind those 2 cars.
Yeah.
So really, it's just a driveway.
Right, it's just, okay. I guess I just wanted to be clear.
Clear,
on that.
no, it's a good question.
Because I think I saw something, maybe in the application, there was something about it creates additional parking space. Granted, it may be a visitor to the house may park there if they've got a shorter car and they don't block the sidewalk. I mean, I understand that's going to happen. But I don't think we can look at it as
You're right.
part of the.
We have a lot of friends with motorcycles.
Yeah.
Don't worry, other residents will call our office if she parked over the sidewalk.
If it's blocking the sidewalk, okay. One question, one thing that we have been looking at more now when there is a lot coverage variance is, are downspouts taken to the curb, or are they dumping?
That's the zoning code, isn't it? I mean, that's mandatory.
Okay,
So
I guess-
for the garage, you would have to probably direct it to open.
yeah, the garage will go there, and then the new addition,
Wherever
which
she's
may
got
be,
it now.
which may end up being the whole house, I guess, but.
Would either go to Hope or it goes to Mural.
Right, but it's not, the point is not just coming down and dumping 3 feet from the house on the grass.
Correct, yeah, I think the code says you have to take it out underground to the curb.
I think it, yeah, it does.
It does say that,
Okay.
yeah.
That's what they make me put on the drawings all the time anyway.
It certainly helps us when looking at a lot coverage variance, because that's certainly part of the reason for the lot coverage requirement.
Mm-hmm.
this is maybe more of a question for staff, that obviously that electric pole there, and there's other reasons in this situation, but obviously that electric pole makes it so it really, you could not orient the garage toward that alley. And it makes you, are there, like at what point would AEP have to come out and move the pole? Because it's in a dumb location.
It's not AEP, the homeowner would have to have that.
That's what I was wondering, it would still be at the homeowner's expense, even if it's like that pole never should have gotten put there in the first place. But if that's where it is now, so they'd have to pay for it.
Yeah, example is when I first got here, somebody built a garage and there was a pole there. And their door was gonna be right there, and they said, well, you gotta move the pole. So they had to go pay AEP to move the pole, to use the garage.
Yeah, well, that's what, I mean, this just seems like AEP put it in the wrong spot. If they put it like in the middle of the property line, so you couldn't orient a two-car garage in that direction, no matter where you put it, I think.
All right, but generally, the pole has been in place for a period of time.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I can see that. That's too bad.
In support of the project, I'm happy to see that this is the first garage run that hasn't put a second floor on.
Don't give any ideas.
Yeah. Simple little garage.
Yeah, I think, obviously we're not doing aesthetic review, but I think the addition looks great. I think the project looks great. I had a couple of questions, but I don't have any objections. But if anybody else does, now's the time.
I think it'll be a nice enhancement to the neighborhood. Like I said, the side elevation was really sharp. I think that alley looks really, I didn't drive it, it looks very narrow behind the house. I think doing the side makes complete sense. You didn't say your tree replacement, it did run into things there's room in the front yard for a tree as well, so.
Particularly with lot coverage requirements, and this is on my list of things from the BZA about at a certain moment, is encouraging planting more trees as part of lot coverage over, just anything that we can do to help.
And when you say in front, you mean in the tree lawn or in the front yard? In the tree lawn?
The Hope was rebuilt so there's new trees there, that looks like one has died maybe, and there's an ornamental tree there, but on the Morel side, there would be room for a larger tree in the tree lawn.
Which is just a matter of calling the city and asking for it, right?
The city, every year, there's a tree sale. You can get a tree at a discounted price, the city will plant it for you. So I think we'll pass that season this year, but next year, that's something that the applicant could take advantage of.
Right.
You hear that?
Did you get that, homeowner?
I love trees.
Excellent.
Mr. Nosky? You're not too quiet today.
I have been quiet, I'm sorry. Yeah, this one's interesting. You know, the numbers look skewed, but they are looking for an additional 163 square feet of surface area, so relatively small in the grand scheme. So I didn't have any pressing items. The one thing you mentioned earlier, I thought you said there was going to be a patio off the third floor.
No, there's a covered patio on the first floor. So
Existing.
Right.
well, I mean, it's kind of, we're creating a new, right now there's a single story addition and then a covered patio structure. And we're basically redoing the single story addition and doing a covered porch, and then the second floor extends over that covered porch.
Okay.
So the first floor addition is smaller than the second floor. The rest of the space is used as an open porch.
I might have just misheard. I thought
It's
you
the
were doing
mass.
a patio off of the third floor, and I didn't see any third floor, so
No third floor, no balcony.
I didn't have any concern. I'm also disappointed that the garage is small, but 2.5-story garages are the thing, so.
2.5 story.
You're reading the wrong thing.
I don't know, I'm looking at the wrong number.
That's,
Brendan Parker's address.
That's what it is. That's the wrong one. I'm sorry. 1298 Morel. Thank you. Grandview Heights, Ohio, 43212. Wow. Increased the lot coverage from 1722 square feet to 1885 square feet, approximately 44%. Section 1155.02C3. Also, item number 2, reduce side yard setback from 10 feet to 9 feet 8.5 inches. Section 1155.09A1. Item number 3, the fence variance to allow for 6-foot privacy fence at east property line. Section 1155.15B. And item number 4, aesthetic review for the project as submitted.
We didn't do it.
It wasn't necessary.
It's on the application form, but we didn't, it wasn't actually in front of us.
Okay. Just reading.
Maybe before we vote on that, can we go back to the, are we, what are we, we're not, so the way the fence approval was just read, you said on the east side, right? And I think we're actually only approving what's on the north side.
I think there may be no plural.
And I wonder if there's no approval, right, because the north side can be 6 foot, and there's something.
And there's not, because in this case, they're taking part of the fence down and then putting the fence back up.
Yeah,
So they're not, it's not a new replacement.
so I think there is not the third item.
So technically, the approval related to side or alley, corner lot side, so, but this fence is so far in from the alley, it doesn't seem to meet it, I don't know, Charlie, it would feel like it counts as an alley, a corner alley fence that would require approval by the board, but that's up to you as well.
It's facing the corner, I mean, the street at the corner, so it's, we would look for approval from the board.
Just approval, but it's not a
But I think
variance.
what I'm, yeah, it's not a variance, it's fence approval, but what I'm looking to clarify is that we're really just we're just approving a new fence on the north section.
As part of.
We're not approving anything on the east side, because that's gonna reuse the existing.
My understanding. It's like
yeah,
it's
I
an
think
action.
some jurisdictions, require an existing condition to be approved if it doesn't meet the code. So that's why I had it written in there. So the fence along the east is existing, so that's good. So you're right, it's just the north fence that we're moving or
North side. So
replacing.
if we can change that third item.
Remove C off the motion.
Well, no, not remove C, but make it just for the north facing part of the fence, portion of the fence.
Understood.
I second.
Yep.
Calvo,
Yes.
Joshua,
Yes.
Mosby,
Yes.
Chair Kinnear,
Yes.
approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Case number 4, our final case of the evening. BZA case 26-2021. Address 1446 West 2nd Avenue. Applicant is Prime Construction, J. Fuller. Owner, Daniel and Barbara Lanshorn. Applicant is requesting a variance from Grandview Heights Planning and Zoning Code, section 1155.09A2. Along the east property line on the corner lot to reduce the required side yard setback from 15 feet to 4 foot 6 inches. A 1-story detached uninhabitable accessory garage structure. And I guess if you can introduce yourself and tell us what we're looking at here.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jared Fuller, for Prime Construction, this is Mr. Lanthorn, homeowner. Basically, we're looking at, just adding a two-car garage to the backside of this property. Right now, there's a previous foundation of some sorts in this area that kind of goes over to Hollywood. But there's a hill that's there, so kind of building anything facing that way would be difficult as far as entry into a garage space in there. So we're hoping to have it come in from around the backside and enter into that area there. The variance, you said 15 feet off the property line. From my understanding, on the corner lot it was 10, and we were looking for the difference there. We're trying to possibly, originally we requested potentially a 24-foot wide on a 30-foot wide property, so we're like 3 and 3, but then we moved it to a 20 width to allow for 2. So we were hoping to have it potentially balanced in that area, but if we had to move it farther towards the property line to get to the minimum 3 feet there and allow us to have 7 on the other side, that would be fine as well. And then I think everything we're looking for is just additional lot coverage, because we'd be going over the 40% of our lot.
All right, thank you.
So, if you're confused in any way about the dimensions, originally there was a belief that the lot was 32 feet wide.
Right, yes, before the survey, yes, thank you so much. for that, yes.
Subsequent survey indicated that it's 30 feet wide.
Right.
Which is much more narrow and of course much smaller ultimately than the standards for the area, as has been discussed earlier today. There's an existing curb cut coming to it's a side entry as well, similar to the last case,
Yep.
which would need to be widened, I think, for a two-car garage to face that direction. The setback is 10 feet for the primary structure from the side yard, but then the accessory structure is 5 feet in addition, which is where the 15 feet comes from. Not really practical, it would deprive them of the ability to put a garage in the lot at all.
Right.
So a variance is truly needed to even do a sort of very basic thing here. In general, given all of those pressures, we would recommend approval for a variance. I think there's a dialogue that could be had with regard to how much of a variance. They've requested the dimensions as shown, with the 4.5 feet from the east side and 5.5 from the west side. However, garages are only required to be 3 feet from the lot line, so if you pushed it to that maximum on the west side, you would get the 7 feet that we mentioned. But I don't know if you need that other space to store. There wasn't anything listed in the application. So depending on the applicant's need with regard to the location, I think there's room for consideration there flexibly as needed, particularly because there really is just a lot of pressure on this lot because it is so small, and they've done all they can to make the garage as small as it can reasonably be and provide the two-car off-street parking that's required by code.
Also, add that the widening of the curb cut would be service department approval.
Certainly, yes.
Okay. Just as a point of
Yeah, I guess-
clarification, this shows that it's coming off the alley, is that not accurate?
I think the depictions are not particularly exact with regard to what.
No, actually, no, you are correct, though. We are requesting that the entry into the garage come off the alley.
Oh, is that it?
No, that's how we had it set up initially, but maybe
Because the roof line would match the houses depicted here, so that was kind of where I was.
yes,
Okay.
exactly,
My
yes.
misunderstanding then.
I think it gets confused because of the existing whatever that was
Yeah.
at some point.
Yes,
All of the
yes.
aerials and stuff look like it's a
Yeah.
side.
Correct.
So I guess that this is gonna clean that up, assuming picture things like
Oh, I get it.
5 or so.
Yeah, I thought the
Yeah.
drawing had it says back alley, sorry, in that bottom right corner there, and this is the sidewalk and the grass. Yeah.
In that case, the curb cut would need to be closed.
Okay.
The side existing one.
Yeah, we would have to,
Linger.
sure, and we would also have to raise the grade on that side as well, to match the grade of the entire lot, but the hill as it goes down the sidewalk. So we have to bring that up, so, yes.
case. And we'll move on to board questions, conversation. I just, before we, anybody else, I would just say, reiterate what Director Buchanan said about the curb cut, just in general, whatever happens to curb cuts is not what we're approving. That's
Sure.
kind of a separate, that's a separate thing that has to happen.
Okay.
And just for the board, I think in past cases where they did switch, they actually, if you go around the city, they left that condition like it is.
They've left it, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said they bluffed it. I didn't
No,
know.
left it,
Oh, sorry,
left it.
okay.
They've left curb cuts.
Left it
They
like
left
that.
it
Oh,
like it
okay.
was because there's no way, they'd have running in his garage.
Yeah.
Right.
But we'll have, him make sure he verifies with the service department, any change that occurs.
Okay.
Would, what Director Coker was saying, I don't know, what are your thoughts on moving that garage further west to within 3 feet of, it seems like that would help.
I don't think that's a problem, right?
No, it's not a problem.
Yeah, no, we were just looking to have it balanced, I guess, but yeah, if we go to a maximum there.
Well, I think with that slope up from the sidewalk, it's not gonna look balanced, and even if it's
You're-
dimensionally balanced, it's not gonna look that
You're
way.
right.
Feel
Yeah,
that.
you're 100% right on that, yeah. Yeah, so we could move to the to the minimum over to where that fence line is, 3 feet, and then do the building standards that they're having us do on that soffit build section, et cetera. That's no problem. Get us over there.
Yeah, I think in general, I would prefer that. You're just moving it.
Yeah, it gives
that
more
much
room
farther
for
from
that.
the sidewalk, right,
Yeah.
it might make it easier to make that turn, once you turn into the alley and then turn into the
Right.
garage.
Right,
Make
no,
that
you're-
easier turn.
You're 100% right.
And if we go with a fence, it will be an iron rail fence to match the railings that are there, so it won't be any view, there'll be nobody blocking any views.
But there's no fence on this application right now.
No, that'd be later on. I'm telling you, but we won't be going into
That's
it.
next year.
We won't have a wooden fence, okay?
Yeah, that would be the separate.
It'll be separate.
You know how fences work.
Yeah,
Yes, I
you
do.
know a lot about how to do a fence now.
We
Oh,
know a
yeah.
lot, don't worry.
I learned that about an hour ago.
My main thoughts are I like how it matches it looks like the existing house was updated recently.
Yeah, so we just recently did all new James Hardy siding on the entire thing with new Pella windows. So we're going to do everything on the garage to match the exact same look on the house as well. Trim windows in the doors, black doors, and then match the roof, the existing roof as well.
I think it'll look sharp, I think.
The application indicates they're looking for a lot coverage variance. Is that,
Well, that disappeared because we were waiting for a survey, and in your packet, you'll see I put some lot coverage things. So I took that out after we confirmed it, because we didn't have the survey to correct everything.
Is that the handwritten notes?
Yeah,
So those square footages are correct.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Those square footages are correct.
Yes, on the,
that's provided by staff. is it?
that's staff, yeah.
So yeah, I guess if that's out, then we're mainly just looking for the.
This is what we really want to get rid of.
Sure.
That, we really want to get rid of that.
With all the math, I don't have a full grasp on what the new number is.
That's what I was just thinking. So,
The variance would be 8 feet. The required setback would be 15 feet, and the variance would be 8 feet for the side yard, and there is no lot coverage variance.
Got it.
you're right, it would be 7 feet. If they push it to 3 feet on the west side, then the east side would be 7 feet strong.
15 minus the.
Yeah, so an 8 foot variance. Which, yeah, I think we'll, on this lot, this size, on the corner, I think that would look like a totally natural location for that garage and not feel out of place.
I think it'll look better than the current.
I think it'll probably look better. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? feel like I also got the impression that this garage was facing Hollywood. I'm not sure how I got that impression.
I think it's the first aerial that has the 20-foot dimension there. It gives you the illusion of that it's coming in.
Yeah, sorry, when I made the rendering, I was trying to show that this was I had a note here that was the back alley with the.
Yeah,
If I would have brought this maybe all the way through, I got rid of the sidewalk part of that might have made it a little clearer, so.
Yeah, it's clear, it's clear enough now, it doesn't matter. I wanted to make sure it doesn't show that somewhere in the application that we need to clarify.
Right.
But I don't think it does show that explicitly in the application.
Anything further?
Mr. Zanowski?
No.
Comfortable with the motion on this one?
I will make the motion for BZA case 26-2021, 1446 West Second Avenue, Grayson Heights, 4342. For the item variance, 6 feet each property line, the new math is now 8 feet from each property line, 1155.09A12. And that's all for this case.
A second?
The order would be that it's 7 feet from the property line and 8-foot variance from the 15 feet required.
Yes. I guess that's,
There's 7 feet from each property line.
right, it is an 8-foot variance that puts us 7 feet from the property.
Glassman?
Yes.
Count
Yes.
Zanowski?
Yes.
Chair Kinzinger?
Yes.
Approved?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For being patient.
Yeah, no
problem.
And make sure you come back for the fence.
What's that?
So make sure you come back.
No fences, right?
Yeah, not for a while. That'll be later on.
All right, any other business?
Hey, folks, open the floor for public comment.
Certainly.
During other business, for example? I just want to say hello and introduce myself. My name is Bill Colgan. I'm a Grandview resident, but I'm the chair of the 5th by Northwest Area Commission, which does much the same as what you folks do. We've had some projects recently that were of concern to Grandview residents, and I realized I don't know you folks very well, so I'm here to say hello and invite you to our meetings. We meet first Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. at St. Luke's Church, which is across the street from the Ace Hardware on 5th. Come on up, see what's going on. Part of the reason I'm on the commission is that a lot of what happens in the 5th Northwest affects Grandview pretty directly. I'd like to see a little more cooperation between the two cities. It's good for us, it's good for the city of Columbus. So I'll try and stop by here every once in a while and keep in touch with you guys.
Have you stopped by council?
I haven't.
That might be a good stop for you.
Okay. Well, it's nice to meet you. I'll
Yeah,
see
as
you.
well as, I guess, somewhat planning commission.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
You know, the division between us and planning commission is, we do residential, I guess up to three family units, and then planning commission does all commercial and multi-family units.
Sure.
Yeah, I know, like, I wish we had more that we could offer at 5th by Northwest. I think it's great. I mean, I may stop by just as a matter of interest.
Please do. There are a lot of projects I'm not crazy about that go on in the 5th Northwest, and the voice of the people in Grandview has a bigger effect than you might think, being a separate city. But so we love input when we get it, especially. It's awful hard to say no to a project that we don't like if there's nobody there to object to it.
Yeah.
Although officially I'm unbiased on all projects.
Right. Right. It sounded like you had quite a turnout for that, the old AAA lot.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But, which I was glad to see, honestly.
Yep.
It's nice to meet you. I hope
Yeah.
to see you
Thanks.
soon. Thanks a lot.
Any other business?
Actually, I will just, remind the board, I guess, we have onboarded an economic development strategic planning partner for the city. And are just in the process now, kind of queuing up how the process will work. I would anticipate that there'll be a number of work groups and stakeholder conversations and interviews and other events that may be involve the entire community as well. I would encourage you to participate in those, that process. Be great. Yeah.
So they're gonna be kind of looking at, call it, an economic development master plan?
That is a fair
Kind of.
description, yes.
Okay.
It was called out as a need in the comprehensive plan that was done at the city in 2019. And so we've been working on various things that are now getting to that point to conduct that, citywide early economic development strategic plan. We'll get, kind of look at, particularly now, be looking at things related to changes that may impact the city because of COVID and changes with workplace, locations and just maturing business sectors and changing business sectors that are going on in Central Ohio. Make sure that the city is well positioned to take advantage of opportunities as well as understand how we can integrate businesses in a way that will continue to prioritize the character and quality of life that we have in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, I remember there, in the comprehensive plan, there seemed to be a focus on good ale. That everybody felt like that's gonna be the next area that needs a lot of attention.
Yep.
And is that sort of thing is what they're gonna be looking at?
That's among the areas we're really kind of looking at all the business, commercial areas. But certainly, good ale is going to be one of them. We will keep you up to date if you don't know how the process, the framework for the process, once it gets fully baked, we'll be making sure that that's advertised out widely to the community.
And I know I emailed you and you emailed me back, if you could just share where we stand on finding or getting a fifth member back?
Yes. Council has been really very hard at work trying to find folks who would be interested, who would be a good complement to the existing skill set and specialties that are on the board now. The next council meeting next Monday, there'll be some interviews. There was a extended application period for folks to submit their resumes. There were a number of them submitted. Council shortlisted 3 potential applicants, and we'll be interviewing those applicants, and hopefully we'll have someone who is excited to join the board next month.
Won't be the new guy anymore.
There you go. And I know as far as being the new guy, there's been conversations with the city attorney about how we could use some BZA training again. We've done that in the past with the city attorney.
I had a meeting with her to go through, I think, the deck that was put together by the city attorney. And so we had a really great conversation that was helpful for
Yeah,
that
that's-
hour. And so I'm open, and I told her I'm open to any other additional opportunities to continue to learn and be engaged, so.
Yep, great. All right, that feels like that was staff communications also.
Yeah, I think so.
Nothing else?
Sorry.
No, that's fine. All right, meeting adjourned.